Alright, hi guys, I'm Mrs. Schneider. We're going to go ahead and do the quizzes for the Linear 3 test review. So very first thing, just a quick review as we're going through this. Don't ever forget your Dr. XY needs an ID to get in and out. We might be referencing that as we go through. Now for this one we don't have to because this one just says find the zero. And a quick reminder, 0 is another name for your x-intercept. In other words, when your y value is 0, what is your x value? So if we go and look, your x-intercept is where it crosses on the x-axis, so that would be +1, +2. So 2, 0, if you were to write it, it was an ordered pair. Okay, the next one says what is the 0 of the line? So again, what is your x-intercept? Well, this time it's going to the left, so that's going to be our -1. Okay, so y equals 2x minus 5. Does the equation show a proportional relationship? So remember, to be proportional, that means that it has to go through the origin, which means your y-intercept has to be 0. Well, if I look at this, that's my slope, that's my y-intercept, and if my y-intercept isn't 0, it's not proportional. So -5 would end up being not proportional. So these are out. No, because it has a y-intercept other than 0, or no, because its slope is 2. Well, the slope has nothing to do with it. It would be because our y-intercept is incorrect. So we're looking at that one. So hopefully those were fairly easy for you. It'd be great if it didn't get any harder than that, right? Okay, some more easy ones actually. Is the graph a function or not a function? So remember, to be a function, x cannot repeat. Now, since we don't have a whole bunch of ordered pairs or a table, in this case, we're going to go ahead and do the vertical line test. And with the vertical line test, it's only allowed to touch one time, and one time only. So if we go ahead and we draw a vertical line, doesn't matter where you draw it, it has to be at any point, it's only allowed to cross one time. So I'll draw a couple of them. Doesn't matter where I draw it, it only touches once, so that is indeed a function. Okay, same with this one. If I draw my vertical line now, though, it touches once, twice. That is not okay, which means it's not a function. Same with this one. Touches once, touches once, touches once, touches once, but when I go here, it does indeed touch 2 times, so therefore, not a function. Okay, so now we're getting into the domain and range, so just remember, domain is the x, and it goes from left to right. Range is the y, and it goes from low to high. Some of you know it as robot dealer. Okay, I think that's it. Between domain is the x, say what, it goes from left to right, say what. Range is the y, say what, it goes from low to high, say what. And robot dealer, between those two, I think that's all the teachers have talked about. So in this one, we want the domain. We want the left to right. So first of all, if I look at my answer choices, right away I can cross one out. And I can cross this one out because this is y. Y is the range. We don't want the range. So that one's out. Okay, so left to right, if I go to my leftmost point, that is an open circle at -3. If I go to my rightmost point, draw to my x-axis, it's an open circle at +4. So leftmost point, -3, rightmost 4, neither one needs the equal to because they're both open circles. So that one was close, but since it was open circles, we didn't want the equal to. Okay, now it wants the range. So range is the y. It goes from low to high. So my lowest point is not there. It's actually right here. So lowest, draw to the y-axis now. That is an open circle at 5. And my high point is up here at 2, and that is a closed circle. So low was -5, which makes it that one, and all the other ones are up. Now notice I didn't have the equal to because it's an open circle, but up here I did have the equal to, so it's a, I did need an equal to because it's a closed circle. Okay, number 9. Jamie sells homemade pies for $15 each. The amount of money he makes is a function of how many pies he sells. If he estimates he will sell between 3 to 7 pies, what are the possible amounts for the money he will earn? Okay, so I'm going to ask myself, do I count money or do I measure it? Well, I count it. I don't know what you do, but if I go to pay someone money, I'm counting it at 1, 2, 3. So counted things are always written as discrete, meaning I can cross off 2 answer choices. It can't be written as continuous, as an interval. It has to be listed. Okay, so he can sell 3 to 7 pies. So he can sell 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Nothing in between. No one wants to go and buy 3 1/4 of a pie. If you go to the grocery store, you're going to say, where's the rest of it? But he wants the possible amounts of money. So really, we could stop here because we know that this isn't the money. This is the possible for pies. But 15 each, so 3 would be 45, 4 would be 60, 5, 75, 6, 90, 7, 105. Okay, so this is the function notation stuff. So evaluating, are you given X or are you given Y, the input or the output? So I always like to make a table. So I'm going to make a little table. And I put X and G of X above it. So if I look, I have something filled in for X. It is giving me my X value. My input is -9, which means I'm looking for my output. So I prefer to use my calculator for this. So I go to my calculator. I have 4x minus 7. Hit enter, pull up the table by Control-T, and I'm just going to scroll till I find -9 as my X value. So -9 is my X, puts me at a Y value of -43, which would be B. Okay, the next one's very similar, except now it literally tells me I'm finding X. So what is X when W of X, meaning Y, is 14? So same process. I'm going to go to my calculator. Now I'm going to do 3x minus 7. And when Y is 14, X is 7. Which would be A. Okay, find the domain values for f of x equals 3x plus 5 if the range is -1, 5, 17, and 29. So here's where Dr. XY helps us. Dr. XY tells us range means the y, and domain means x. So we're finding the domain. We're finding x values when our y values are these right here. So I'm going to fill these in for y. -1, 5, 17, and 29. And here's my function. So I'm going to put that into the calculator. So go to my calculator. 3x plus 5. And kind of just like I did the last ones, I'm just going to start scrolling until I find some. So -1. When y is -1, x is -2. I'm going to plug that into my table. When y is 5, x is 0. 17 would be 4, and 29 would be 8. So once you have that, there's your domain values, which matches C. Easy peasy. Okay, on this one, which equation has a slope of 6 and a y-intercept of -3? So based on y equals mx plus b, just fill in your slope, fill in your y-intercept. So slope -3, y-intercept, oops, never mind, ignore that. Sorry, slope is 6, y-intercept -3, which looks like this one. Okay, compare the graphs f of x equals x and g of x equals 1/2 f of x minus 1. Which of the following is true? Okay, so it's telling me in this that f of x is the parent function. So I can actually use my calculator. I can put this into y1 and I can put this into y2, but the way I have to put it in is by replacing f of x with what it is, and in this case f of x equals x. So I'm transforming. Basically this is my new equation, and now I can put those into the calculator. So clear out of this, I go to my calculator. First thing I want to do is put in x. My second line is 1/2 x minus 1. And now I'm just going to look at those as I read my answer choices. So my y-intercept of g of x, which is this one, is 1 unit higher. Well, that's not 1 unit higher, that's 1 unit lower, so that's not true. The slope of g of x is twice as steep. So this is g of x, but this is not as steep. It's less steep. Not true. The y-intercept of g of x is 1 unit lower. Well, if I look, the y-intercept is down here instead of up there. So that did go ahead and move down. So your answer should be B. So if you can get that in the calculator, that becomes a pretty easy question. If not, you have to think of I hot over. This is outside of the parentheses, so it's a vertical change. It does exactly what I think. So if I'm subtracting 1, I would think it would move it 1 unit lower. But really on that one, try to just look whatever f of x is and replace that and plug it into your calculator. Okay, number 15, graph the linear function passing through the point 4, -9 and has a slope of -3/2. What is the root? So, a couple ways you can do this. One, you can actually graph it. You can graph 4, -9. And then you can say, okay, my slope is -3/2. You're going to go off the graph. But that's okay, because I want the root. And the root is another name for x-intercept. So instead of going off the graph, I'm going to go backwards. Instead of going down 3 and right 2, I'm going to go up 3 and left 2. So up 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So if you're good at graphing, this is a really easy way to do it. You'll see that your root is -2. If you're not good at graphing, here's what I recommend you do. Make a table. You're given 1 point right here. Put that in your table. If it's a root, it's telling you it's the x-intercept, which means these are all x values when y is 0. So it's essentially an ordered pair. You can just stat edit until you find the one that has the correct slope. So let me show you. First, you need to know what that is as a decimal, because it's going to give it to you as a decimal. So you would go to calculate and type -3 divided by 2, and if you just hit enter, it keeps as a fraction. But if you hit control before you do it, then it gives it to you as a fraction. So I'm looking for -1.5 as my slope. So I'm going to go to stat edit. I know the answer already, so it should be like I can know exactly which one to choose. But x, put in y, 4, -9. And then use an answer choice. So I'm not going to do the correct answer. I'm going to do the wrong answer. 10, 0. I'm going to see if I thought it was B. And I wanted to check my answer. Here's what I could do. So I have it in menu, stat calc, mx plus b. Use your drop down. And if I look, that gives me +1.5. Well, I don't want +1.5. I want negative. So you don't have to redo the whole thing. You just go change this number. -2, which we know is the answer. And then there you go. You can see there's your correct slope. So that is what I recommend doing if you are not good at graphing. Just convert your slope to a decimal and then stat edit that with one answer choice. You only use one at a time. You use the point they give you and one answer choice. And that will give you the correct slope. Or it increases by 9, it decreases by 6, -9/6 is the same thing as -3/2. So tons of different ways you can do that. All right, which table represents the function? Which table represents the function y equals 2x minus 6 with that domain? So first thing, domain is the x, so that means that's out. And the rest are possible options. So you just use your calculator, 2x minus 6. So if I go to my calculator, 2x minus 6, Control T, and I'm checking for 1, 2, and 3, which is -4, -2, 0. So that would be A. All right, number 17. Miss Cepeda is grading papers. She has finished 24 papers so far. To calculate how long it will take her to finish grading papers, she uses this function to find how many hours x it will take her to grade y papers. What is the slope and what does it represent? Okay, so x represents how many hours. So I'm looking at a slope of 15. So 15 is my slope, which means that's out and that's out. And it represents how many hours. Well, this one says minutes. We need the one that says hours. So B. Number 18, look at the table. Is the relation a function? So is this a function? Well, to be a function, again, x cannot repeat. If I look at those, none of those repeat. So it's a yes. And it has nothing to do with the constant rate of change, aka slope. It has to do with no x values repeating. Okay, so function or not a function. Well, if I look, I have input. It is not a function because x repeats. Next one, which graphs given have a y-intercept of 3 and a slope of -1/2? So I would put an equation together, y equals -1/2x plus 3. Just use my slope and my y-intercept, and then I type it in my calculator. control divide, we'll let you put a fraction in, so negative 1 over 2x plus 3. And then I would turn your grid lines on, so menu, view, grid, line to grid. And you're just matching. So this to me, it crosses up there at 3, which means B, D, and C are out. It's got to be A. That definitely matches A. Oops, there you go. All right, almost done. 3 more to go. Devin keeps a record in graph form of how far his car travels and the number of gallons of gasoline it uses. What is the slope? So I have an ordered pair right here and an ordered pair. Well, it didn't look like an ordered pair. How about I use this one, which is 264, and this one up here, which is 10,320. 2 order pairs. If you want the slope, stat edit. So go to our calculator, Excel spreadsheet, aka stat edit, X, Y, and type that in, 2, and that would be 10. Come over here, 64 and 320. Menu, stat calc, mx plus b, x, y, okay. And there you go. M is 32. Remember, m is the same thing as slope. You're not looking at the b, you're looking at n. So C. Number 22. Hey, that's me. I love hiking. If you're not my student, you don't know that. But if you're my student, you know I love hiking. Hiking to a fault. So does my husband, which is why he's featured in this too. Mrs. Schneider is returning after her hiking trip with her husband. Her height above the canyon floor is modeled in the graph. What is her rate of change of the height with respect to time? So rate of change is another way to say slope, which means I need 2 points. I'm going to just use my x and y intercept. So I start at 360, so 0, 360. Gosh, this is tiny. And I go all the way to the ground at 18, so 18, 0. And I think I still have stat added up.
Waymeyer, please come to the front office. Carissa Waymeyer, please come to the front office.
Apparently they need Clarissa. Okay, 0 and 360. And then 18. Whoops, not 15. 18. 0. What I love about these calculators is it just changes it right there then. So negative 20. Two more. The number of miles Josh has left to travel depends on the time as shown on the graph. If he arrives at his destination in 4 hours, which of the following best describes the domain and range? Okay, so there's no arrows on either side of this. So there is a stopping point. Stops there and there. So domain, all real numbers. Well, again, it doesn't go on forever in either direction, so it's not all real numbers. Domain, all real numbers, and don't stop here because it's got requirements. All real numbers greater than or equal to 0, so domain is left to right. So my leftmost point is at 0. My rightmost point is at 4. So let's see if it fits that. All real numbers greater than or equal to 0 and less than or equal to 4. Well, it talks about both of those things. Let's check the range. Range, my low point is at 0. High point is at 160. all real numbers greater than or equal to 0 and less than or equal to 160. So both of those fit. This one has it flip-flopped, otherwise it would be close. Last one. What are all the names for X and Y? That's my cute doctor. Dr. XY needs an ID to get in and out. He is the cutest doctor around, I'm telling you. So that would be this one. Alright, well thank you for watching if you made it to the end, all 26 minutes of my wonderful video. Again, I'm Mrs. Schneider. I do sign autographs. You just have to stop by. I charge them at $1.50 a signature, which to me is a bargain. Right, Megan? It's a bargain? For sure. She bought 5 of them. Megan Cholbler bought 5 signatures from me. My biggest fan. All right. Thank you. Have a good day.